So I guess we are live. Hey, Miguel, how are you? Great to have you today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks so much for the invitation, and thanks to everyone who's connected.
Amazing. So typically, I provide 2 minutes for people to jump on. So maybe we can just get started with a casual conversation, and that way we give a few minutes to onboard. So just as a super quick introduction here with Miguel. I'm trying to remember how we met. It was probably back in 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
when AI wasn't such a hot buzzword. And back then you were at Albertsons, or actually even before at Rimac and Grupo Breca in Peru. Maybe through there, that's how we met. And it's just been so exciting to see the evolution of this industry, and having a Latin American, Peruvian native living in the US, representing this community, having you as one of the top thought leaders in the space is really exciting. So thanks as always for all the time that you dedicate to H20 and some of our portfolio companies.
No, I'm happy to, and thanks for the kind words. Yeah, AI has exploded, and I think it's fortunate that has happened because it's more accessible to more founders, more startups, and more companies, and society at large. So it's exciting times.
Exciting times indeed. It's been 2 minutes, so I'll kick it off now. We have Miguel Paredes, former vice president of artificial intelligence and data science at Albertson, and before former chief AI officer at Grupo Breca, which is one of the largest privately owned groups in Latin America, with multiple operations in different verticals. Miguel, as well as an AI fellow and advisor at the AI Fund, and also helping H20 on a case by case basis with some of our portfolio companies that require some product and AI advisory. We actually have leveraged Miguel in the past for a few hours with some of our portfolio companies that have struggled and required AI capabilities. So we're here today, and just to kick it off, just to discuss what we'll be talking about. It's mainly going to be best practices and common themes for the general startup and executive who wants to leverage and boost efficiency with AI tools. We'll also be discussing how to leverage competitive advantages and create moats in the Gen AI world. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers at the end, maybe for another 10 minutes, perhaps some of the more curious audience members. So ready to kick it off. Thanks again for your time and for participating today in this discussion.
Oh, thank you. Should we go ahead and start presenting,
Let's
Daniel?
do it.
So we're going to share a few slides, and Daniel and I will have a conversation around some of these topics. Let me share this here, and please let me know when you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
I see it.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be talking a little about how to leverage generative AI tools and efficiency at work, and not only work, in general in life. And we'll talk about some of the things that are happening in this space. As Daniel said, Gen AI took people by storm November 30, 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT. AI has been around for 70 years, early beginnings in the 1950s. We'll talk a little about that in a bit. But really, when OpenAI released ChatGPT, it really put it on society's mind. And a lot of people started talking about it and really seeing the power of it. So just question for the audience. When you guys hear GPT, what do you guys think of? And what does GPT mean? And if you guys are a little bit curious and have Googled this or ChatGPT'd it, it's a generative pre-trained transformer. Now, honestly, the conversation today is not technical. We don't want to bore you guys with technical aspects. But when you guys hear ChatGPT, what it is a type of technology that has to do with transformers, neural networks, generative AI. But the real concept and the real meaning that we're interested in, and that really has the importance around AI, has to do with general purpose technologies. A general purpose technology is a concept that's been studied by economists, by sociologists, and in general technologists. And it's any technology that has had the potential or has the potential to transform our society, our world, our economies. And there's been different general purpose technologies across time. One of them has been the steam engine. Another one has been the internet, the electricity, mobile phones and devices with geolocation. All these technologies, if you guys think about it, have transformed how we interact with each other, how we work, the jobs that exist. So for example, refrigerators and food, preservation and being able to study in places, projecting slide decks right now, being able to connect and talk. All of these things are thanks to different types of general purpose technologies. AI is a general purpose technology. It is a technology that will transform and is transforming already many of the things we're doing and we do as a society. There's two general value streams of value creation with AI. One of them has to do with productivity, with efficiency. And this is basically doing the same things humans do, but doing it quicker, less costly, less errors, right? So that's productivity. How do we do things with computers, or enhancing ourselves with computers and doing things more productively, more efficiently? And today we're going to talk a little about that and the opportunities that arise from that. The other space has to do with innovation and creation of new things. And I think this is the harder part. And it's hard for us to imagine. Place yourself in a moment in time when electricity had not been invented yet, and certain industries and certain artifacts and certain technologies did not exist. It would have been hard to think about these things. Think about a refrigerator. Think about airplanes. Think about Netflix. It would have been very hard. So innovation and creation of new things with general purpose technologies, specifically with AI, that's the harder part. And I would make a call to you guys to think a little about what are those things that could potentially be new businesses, new industries. There's nothing wrong with the productivity. Most of the things we're seeing in this space have to do with productivity plays, and that's great. There's a lot of value there. But the big opportunities are those spaces where things will be created, things will be rewritten, or they will be reconfigured. So is AI a hype, or are we at an inflection point? A lot of people think that AI will exterminate us. Other people think that AI will save us. It's funny that Elon Musk, in 2015, he said, the way we're developing AI, it's like we're summoning the devil. We're calling the devil. Like this is very dangerous, the way we're developing AI. So that's why he went on and founded OpenAI. He wanted AI to be open and at service of society. And we know all the drama that's been around OpenAI. And like recently he sued Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. It's a very interesting times. And sometimes it feels like we're in a Netflix episode or we're observing a show. Other people think that AI will save us. Actually, Elon Musk 4 days ago came out and said that he believes that there's going to be a universal salary income for people because AI will do a lot of things. So a lot of people believe that there's opportunity and risk as well. And some important people that are talking about the importance of AI and how it's changing the world are Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeffrey Hinton, Andrew Ng, talking about AI as a new electricity. And I want to highlight what Jeffrey Hinton said. If you guys don't know who Jeffrey Hinton, down on the left, he is one of the most important people in AI. He's called the grandfather of AI, together with some other researchers. He was an advisor at Google, University of Toronto. He developed a technology or a method that really help propel artificial intelligence as we know it today. He is a very serious person, very experienced, and one of the most important people that understands this technology. He said the following phrase in May of last year when he resigned to Google. And I don't say this to scare you guys. I do say this to ponder on the significance of AI research and evolution. So he said, I'm coming to believe that it's plausible that that humankind is just a phase in the evolution of intelligence. And he said this after tinkering and playing around with GPT-4 that had been released a while back. So when he was playing with GPT-4, he said this type of intelligence is impressive and it's different than human intelligence. And I believe that AGI might be possible, is basically what he was saying. AGI is a concept of artificial general intelligence. But I think it's important to realize that there's some people who think it will be a risk. There's other people who don't think it's a risk. There's people in between. But I think we are at the cusp of important changes in society. Now, I think what's very important is to realize that we are in an age of intelligence as a service, of artificial intelligence as a service if you want, but intelligence as a service. Any company, any person that has the money to pay for it could access GPT 3.5, GPT-4 Turbo, Claude, Bard, Gemini. Any of these foundational models can be accessed through the cloud. And what's going to happen is, and it's already happening, one can consume intelligence as a service and can pay less money or more money. I can have the brain, if you want to think of it that way, of a child or of a teenager, or I can have Albert Einstein's brain, the most advanced one, and I just have to pay for it. So in an age where intelligence can be accessed by anyone and by my competitors and by my fellow professionals, then what actually creates a competitive advantage? What creates an edge for us as humans? And what creates an edge has to do with a couple of things. One of them has to do with the data. Data is one of them. And the other competitive lever, or another one, a very important one, is us humans and how we use this technology, this general purpose technology, how we create new things, how we reconfigure, how we incorporate it into our products and how we serve our customers. Now, data is a competitive advantage because AI is becoming commoditized. There's more and more access to these technologies. They're becoming better at certain things, especially language models. And using AI will be like using Uber X, Uber Black. You pay more, you get more power, you get better service. And the true differentiator will be the proprietary data. So if you're a startup, you're an executive, you're thinking of how to create an edge with AI in your company, invest in data. Start thinking about how you have your data, what's the quality, what's the availability, how are you orchestrating it, and create touch points with your clients or in your production processes that give you data that your competitors don't have. Because if you apply the same intelligence on the same data that your competitor has, you guys are going to get the same predictions, the same generations, the same insights. But if you apply that intelligence that your competitor has on data that your competitor does not have, you're going to get an edge. You're going to get insights. So investing in data becomes very important.
Hey, Miguel, could I just come in for a second and ask you a question that's on my mind? So I went to a summit recently, the FII conference in Miami. It's an annual summit in Miami and Riyadh, sponsored by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi. And one of the key themes on this summit was the dependence and upper hand that the Magnificent Seven and some of the large multi-trillion-dollar companies have for distribution and access to compute power. And the topic of conversation was around infrastructure versus the application layer of AI. And ultimately, my conclusion was that the large players will predominate and that startups on the infrastructure layer will win if and only if they work with the top 5, 6, or 7 players, right? I wanted to pick your brain there and connecting it to creating competitive advantages and moats, and assuming that there's startups or potential founders in the room that do not have a direct, speed dial to Jeff Bezos or to Bill Gates. What can they find as a moat down the road if it's not at the distribution or at the GPU compute level?
That's great question, great point, Daniel. It's true that a lot of these models are in a few hands. Google, Meta, Amazon, NVIDIA, and some startups that were heavily funded and that had people that left the Googles and the other companies to form them. Now, I would say the reason why we probably, at least in the short term, won't see more companies, a proliferation of companies building these foundation models, is because access to GPUs, the processors, the hardware needed to train these models, is extremely not only expensive, but scarce. You could have all the money in the world, and there's just not enough chips. There's a backlog to buying these chips. So that's one constraint. The other constraint is talent. Like, to build LLMs, to build these models, there's basically been a few places in the world that have been doing this research and had the people that have been doing it. So they've learned on the job, and they basically have, they're in a few companies. Now, it doesn't mean that other technical people cannot learn them, but it's going to take a while. And also so there's an edge there. There's a few people that actually know how to do it, because there were very few places that were actually asking them to do research and given the liberty to build these things or anything that came out of it. And the other thing is, like, that talent will not necessarily go to places that don't have the GPUs, that don't have the hardware, they don't have the toys to play with. So the CEO of a startup that's disrupting the search space, so Google's space, it's called Perplexity. And the CEO gave an interview, I think it was a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And he basically said, I try to poach people from Meta. And Meta has Llama 2, and like, it's got amazing, amazing talent. One of the other grandfathers of AI is at Meta, Yann LeCun. And he's got an amazing AI team there. And they got, Meta's buying up most, or the largest proportion of GPUs from NVIDIA. And they're trying to poach. I read a news piece this morning that Mark Zuckerberg is sending personal letters and communications to different scientists at OpenAI, at Google, et cetera, trying to poach them and have them come to Meta. So even if you wanted to have the money, you can't get them. If you have all the money, and actually a lot of VCs, as part of their value proposition to startup, was saying, I'm not only going to invest money into your company, I'm also going to give you these GPUs that I've secured from NVIDIA or like in the cloud. So then you got the talent problem. There's very few people that know how to build this from scratch. And then you have the fact that even if you could try to poach them, they probably won't go to work at your company. As the Perplexity CEO wanted to poach the Meta people were telling him, when you have GPUs, 10,000 of them, call us. We will go and work for your company. So Perplexity, which is disrupting the search space, is using APIs to ChatGPT. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for startups to build on top and really understand the customer, the consumer, and create products and value propositions that really understand the consumer's need. And then also there's opportunity around data. What data is, so Google has a ton of data, Meta has a ton of data, but you guys have to remember that first-party data exists in many traditional companies. So for example, I used to work at Albertsons and Safeway. Supermarkets have a ton of data on what milk you buy, what cheese you buy, what butter you buy, what do you buy when you buy steak? What do you buy salmon? Are you vegan? They can infer a lot of these things. So a lot of that data, the Googles, the Metas don't have. So transactional data, consumption data, banks have, retailers have, that is golden data. So I think there's a lot of opportunities where there's first-party data where the big techs don't have it. And yes, partnering with them will make sense. Now, just one last comment, Daniel, I'll give it back to you. The scarcity of GPUs and compute is actually something that's being addressed and has been addressed for a while. There's so many companies being funded that are hardware companies, AI chip companies. So you got Cerebras, you got Grok, you got today I was reading of one that is basically just like raising money from AI pioneers. So there's many companies that are trying to do something about the bottleneck. Whenever there's money and there's bottlenecks, there's going to be innovation that's going to try to go for those latent demand that's not being serviced, or it's going to arbitrage on price. So I think we're going to see a lot of companies competing with NVIDIA, and a lot of and that will change, therefore, the limit in terms of startups that are building GenAI large foundation models.
Super interesting, Miguel. Thank you for that background, and let's continue. And I'll jump in if other questions come up.
Perfect. Now, besides data being a competitive advantage, humans are also a competitive advantage, and by that I mean how we use this technology, our creativity, how we stitch things together. How are we able to think about our customer and their needs and incorporate into the value proposition and make better our value proposition with these tools? Or also just being able to be more productive at work. So how much time do we spend reading emails or reading reports that now can be generated or summarized by GenAI? Or how about like some tasks that are repetitive and we don't necessarily need them to be 100% right, but if we had GenAI produce some initial drafts, we would save hours of work. I don't know how many of you guys like doing PowerPoints. I hate them. Or like writing things. Now you can actually use some of these tools to do things quicker and better, and at least like do a lot of the work for you. I think what's going to happen as well is there's going to be an optimal allocation, redistribution of tasks between humans and AI. As GenAI becomes better and better and better, what's going to happen is organizations are going to start seeing that there's certain tasks that humans do and they shouldn't be doing because GenAI is better at doing them. And there's tasks that it's better that the human do it together with an AI, so enhancement. And there's other tasks that just the AI is not good enough or the problem is complex enough and humans will do. So we're going to start seeing this reconfiguration of how tasks are assigned in companies. So instead of thinking of AI replacing humans and roles and jobs, we should think of roles and jobs as a compilation of tasks. And some of those tasks will be outsourced to the AI. And the humans, us, we will have more time to focus on other things. So that slack in terms of time and effort will be reconfigured. And probably this is not only going to happen at the individual level, it's going to happen at the team level and how we work together as team members and in cross-functional teams. Finally, I think everyone will have their own AI agent. If you guys think about it, like our data is on our devices, on our laptops, in the cloud, in our email, in our consumption and our credit cards. We wouldn't trust humans with looking at our data, or at least most of us wouldn't, or we wouldn't trust them in looking at all our data. Now, would you trust an AI that's non-human, non-judgmental potentially? I would be more willing to give my data to an AI agent and say, hey, learn all you can about me with all my data. A lot of people wouldn't, that's fine. It's privacy concern, of course, and it could be hacked, so there's always these complications. But if AI agents really understood how you work, you operate, you think, how you make choices, then potentially a lot of our work will be offset through AI agents. If you think about it, an AI agent has the potential to shrink time, right? So when you meet someone like, hey, where are you from? What do you like? All these questions would be repetitive. Or if you're doing certain tasks, you would have to wait and like time would elapse and you're doing the task. If your AI agent is doing it in the background and you're just doing something else, working or being with your kids or like playing something or watching a movie, basically then the AI agent comes with it done or 80%, 90% done. It's shrinking time. It's preventing you from having to do things and really allowing you to do more meaningful or other things. So as a conclusion, for sure, there's some AI tools that can boost productivity, and we're going to talk a little more as we start talking with Daniel. Some of them are well known, so Notion AI, Miro AI, Jasper, Grammarly, and there's different types of categories. So text to image, text to video, text to audio, etc. Synthesia, Runway, Resemble, etc. And like ChatGPT, obviously. And a lot of these tools actually help us do things better. There's many like PowerPoint creators, coding support and coding creators, video and image and copy. So there's basically GenAI tools coming out for a lot of things. Now, I want to mention two others, which I think are really important. They're AI companies that can really help think about AI productivity. One is WorkHelix. WorkHelix is developed by Stanford, MIT, Wharton professors. And the CEO is a former Amazon and Google. WorkHelix, I think, does a beautiful job at using a technology to help understand what is the optimal allocation of tasks to humans and to AI. So basically, it goes through the job description of different companies, the roles, and it says, look, these are the tasks that your employee base is doing. This percentage of tasks could actually be done or replaced or outsourced to an AI. So WorkHelix is doing a lot of interesting things in that space. The other one is Workera. Workera is co-founded by Andrew Ng, a Stanford professor AI. He created Google Brain, one of the most important people in AI. I'm fortunate to work at the AI fund, which is where he leads the AI fund. I'm an advisor there. And Workera, basically what it does is it creates a photograph, a radiography of people's competencies. And it basically helps say, hey, these people and these tasks would really be mapped out together. So if I'm being mapped by Workera's technology, it would help me understand what I'm good at and where I should potentially be working. So if you tie that with what the AI is good at, potentially you have an optimal configuration of tools. And it also helps, Workera also helps you upskill and think, where are the gaps in employees' knowledge and abilities and skills, and it can help you really figure out a plan, an educational plan to really train your employees. So just a final thought, artificial intelligence will not replace humans. Humans who use artificial intelligence will replace those who do not use it. It's kind of like knowing how to use Excel or an email, or if you're from a different country from the States, understanding and using English as a language. And I think the other important thing is everyone should be learning AI. There's different courses online that are free, AI for everyone, generative AI for everyone, ChatGPT prompt engineering for developers, etc. So that's it. Happy to connect, and I'm going to stop sharing so we can have a conversation.
Miguel, thank you so much for those lines. We have a few audience questions, so I'll kick those off, and then I have a few of my own to lead the conversation on leveraging AI tools for efficiency at work. The first question is from Daniel Corbera. He asks, well, actually, no, that's not a question, that's a comment. So Antonio Gelbstein, what are your thoughts on AI? Will AI converge to the one universal and ubiquitous automata, or AI will develop into multiple open source and private unbreakable encrypted networks? How the definition of free will and its perdurability factor on this?
This is a very hard question. Let me open ChatGPT. No, I'm just kidding. This is a great question, Antonio. It's very deep and philosophical, and I mean, to be honest, I don't know what will happen. I'll give you guys some thoughts on where I think this will go. I don't think in the short, mid, or even long term, maybe in the super long term, we will have one universal and ubiquitous AI. If one wants to, there's people who believe that artificial general intelligence will be a reality. And I used to think that was not a possibility until I heard Jeff Hinton mention the comment on the intelligence comment and the feasibility and the plausibility that humans are just a phase in the evolution of intelligence. So when someone like Jeff Hinton says something like that, you listen carefully, or you should. But even if AGI is a reality, I don't necessarily think that there will be one AGI. I think it's hard to imagine a convergence of an AI, because I think that AI has values embedded in them, even if we're not conscious of them. And I think there's different groups, different places in the world generating different AIs. Now, maybe if this happens, it'll converge and realize that that's the optimal thing to do. But I don't know. I think not in the midterm to long term, but it could make sense that it becomes one ubiquitous in the long-term equilibrium. In terms of definition of free will and its perdurability factors on this, yeah, I don't know. This is a hard question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough to go into this space, but it's a very important topic. The free will topic is a very interesting one.
Yeah, that word perdurability. I have to practice it more often.
Yeah.
So on the next question, so Heather is asking, in what ways do you foresee Gen AI tools influencing traditional business models, and how can organizations adapt to maximize the potential benefits while mitigating potential risks? And I wanted to add to this question a topic on software, vertical software, and embedding AI into that software. How do you foresee AI in general impacting that business model?
Yeah, I think it's going to transform companies because it's going to transform what people do and how people do it and how people work together. So I think there's a lot of companies that are going to continue doing what they do. Right, we'll always have certain needs, and there will be companies doing that. I think it's just going to be that some companies that will continue to have the same purpose and service and product will just do it differently. We'll be leaner, we'll rely more on AI, or we'll rely on other companies to start providing a lot of this outsourcing of some of the tasks. But there's a lot of companies that they're not going to change, right? Now, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of organizations that are going to start creating new things because customers are going to be really expecting different things. So for example, think about ChatGPT when it was released. It was very interesting. Like, we were all used to Googling things, right? You put in something and many options appeared. Some of them were paid or ads. And we were just used to that. And we didn't question it. There were people who were questioning it. There's many startups that were doing search and trying to do it differently. When OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, one of the innovations and one of the brilliant things about it was a simple product that served the need of information and answers in a very different way. It was one answer. It could be wrong. It could be hallucinating, but it was one answer. So it lessened the cognitive burden of what parts of this answer can I actually trust. And a lot of people like that. So I think society and we humans have a lot of needs and wants that we're not aware of, and they haven't been elicited because we're so used to products being designed in a certain way. I think that's probably going to start changing. I think Gen AI will enable quick iterations of product development and exposure to clients. And I think a lot of startups that are being creating are doing that, are creating new ways of doing things. And sorry, in terms of adapting and mitigating potential risks, I think the largest risks, there's two. There's many, but one of them is staying behind, not training, not AI skilling the people, the employees, right? And not leveraging this technology. That's a big, probably existential risk. The other one has to do with operational and has to do with like, hey, like a lot of these systems, if you don't have guidelines in place, it's very risky. It could be data could be exposed. It could be data could be exposed to the outside world, or the people could put in things that the company doesn't want others to know. And there's been cases like this. Now there's guidelines or the way to deal with this, but that I think is one of the risks.
Amazing. Then Pedro Alvarez is asking, what should encourage the decision of building a quick product in-house versus leveraging a sometimes more expensive Gen AI tool to deliver it quicker?
Yeah, time to value is a big one, obviously. Like, how quickly could you develop it versus just grabbing a Gen AI tool to do something? I think a lot of companies are going to be either fine-tuning LLMs A lot of companies are going to build their own repositories of data, and you will use the LLM on things that you can't answer in your data, because if not, it's too costly. It makes no sense to be sending everything to an LLM. So a lot of traditional machine learning will be used as well, to classification on the intention on the prompt, and orchestration of, hey, this client is asking this. It makes no sense to send it to an LLM because we know the answer, right? Maybe you'll just extract the answer from somewhere and use the LLM to put it nicely if it's not already predefined an answer. The other thing is, I think, cost for sure. And now it's funny, there's this meme that it had 2023, like the typical Silicon Valley CB Insights map, right? Marketing, sales, et cetera, like all the startups working that space, fintech. And it had the GenAI, and it had like a ton of different figures. And then it had like 2024, and there was only OpenAI's icon. Because what was happening is there were a lot of companies building features or building their products and services, and OpenAI then released features that were basically doing that. So for example, talk to your data. There were a lot of companies in the beginning that were basically using OpenAI to process PDFs and documents. And then OpenAI made a feature within their chatbot that made it very easy to anyone to just use OpenAI for that. So I think that's another one. And cost is important because obviously there's a lot of situations where you still need to have humans evaluating, so it becomes kind of cumbersome and costly and risky.
And adding to the question, when do you see that thin line between over-indexing AI tools versus just doing it in-house? For example, frequently asked questions versus asking the LLM questions that will cost you a few cents per answer.
Yeah, I think FAQ, so frequently asked questions, is a great space where in the beginning maybe you want to use the LLM, but then you want to converge on that 80% of questions that are always being asked, and just have like a repository and do like an internal RAG and bring in the information. So I think one has to be very mindful of the design of the application, right? And I think what's going to happen is people are going to use LLMs to for the last mile in many cases, where they'll use it. They have the answer, they have the information they got from somewhere, and they'll use it to kind of like put it nicely for the customer to consume or the internal employee to consume. And still you have to be careful because you're still paying for each call. But I think in many cases that will become more cost effective, because you're still not sending a ton of data. You're not sending a lot of tokens. You're sending less. And in many cases, it's just going to be traditional search and look for something and put it in a certain way that's a predefined answer, where you have certain things that are variable and you're just replacing.
What about talking about the same dynamics on that thin line between leveraging AI or doing it the old school for product and engineering? And perhaps if we could talk about one or two great tools that product or engineers should be leveraging.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, the different co-pilots I think developers should be testing. They're still not 100% accurate, but I mean, it really is helping, especially the younger developers, the less experienced ones. And in general, even experienced ones, is like it gets you 80% of the way. The problem sometimes is that like it can introduce certain bugs, or like, so it really, there has to be a systematic and rigorous approach to how to design and incorporate these things in traditional DevOps. And I think there's more and more startups working in that space to provide those tools. In terms of productivity tools, I think there's a lot of tools out there that are basically being used to help edit things, or like have a jump start at certain answers or email generation, or like what are the insights of reports. There's like a ton of reports. And what's also happening is AI agents will become more and more a thing, where you're going to be basically developing your AI agents and say, hey, go out and do some market research on this space, or I want to know some things about this segment of clients, right? Or what are the typical purchase patterns and behavioral patterns of these companies? So that's something that's going to start happening. AI agents there's going to be companies produce. So I could develop that. It's probably going to be, there's going to be companies that are going to be developing those ad hoc and really optimized for certain tasks. I think that's going to be a big space. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of startups doing it. I think there's going to be a first mover advantage in a way, but not just because of moving first and understanding the pain point well. If they understand the pain point well, I think that'll create adherence and just onboarding of customers.
Super, super interesting. And Miguel, talking about other use cases, let's pretend, X founder operates a vertical software business, and they're looking for customer acquisition strategies. Typically, they would use performance marketing, so leveraging Meta and Google and TikTok ads. Now they want to implement AI to make their click-through rates and conversion rates and customer acquisition costs lower. What use cases or what implications do you foresee that AI can have to make go-to-markets more efficient from a customer acquisition perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one can leverage GenAI to basically, let's say one does not have a segmentation of clients. One could ask the GenAI to go through the data and say, hey, like, come up with a segmentation of clients and generate a database that has them segmented, has a flag of their segment, and make sure that it's like 5 segments. And these are the important variables I want to segment on. And the GenAI can do that today. You have to be careful and make sure you look at it, but it could do that. And then you can say like, hey, I want you to come up with different interventions, different campaigns, different messages, and different emails having those messages, and produce them for me. And if you work a little even harder, harder in terms of like, it's still, there's more and more tools coming out, but I would say it's still, some things are manual. You could say, but probably very soon, if this doesn't exist already, I would be surprised if it doesn't. You could say, I want these 3 messages to be randomly selected, or like do an experiment and tell me out of these 3 messages, which one is most efficient. And so I'm sure what's going to happen is a lot of the A/B testing and experimentation capabilities, one will be able to just ask for those through the GenAI, and the GenAI will produce a lot of the copy and interventions, and then it'll give you metrics as well. So I think that's going to happen. I think those automation of those tasks is going to be something that GenAI will be able to do.
So I spoke recently to a company that was actually leveraging customer reviews on Yelp and other customer data sources, and they were having the ChatGPT chatbot or LLM summarize those frequently asked or frequently starred pain points, issues, or I guess applauses, and then using those summaries to build emails to then reach out to the key decision makers in those stores, and it was working quite nicely.
Yeah. There's many of those use cases coming. I would say, like, to be completely transparent and honest, the promise of GenAI is still to be seen. I would say the largest space where there's been a demonstration and evidence of value is customer experience, customer support, customer care. So there's a famous study from Stanford and MIT, another one from Harvard, and one from BCG, that basically demonstrate and show how productivity increase in customer service centers have really 2 digits, 14%, 15%, 17%, important. But I would say we do have to be exploratory and be honest that this technology is impressive. Still, there's still more evidence to be found around where is there a ton of value being created.
And shifting gears a bit to talk about business models or use cases, do you foresee large application or infrastructure level companies arising or being born in Latin America, and will those companies be able to sell to the world? And perhaps what positive tailwinds does the region have to create such companies or success stories?
Yeah, no, I do for sure. The beauty about Gen AI is that it lowers the barrier to entry in terms of this application space leveraging AI. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate in a way that it's hard to get hands on GPUs and talent, and that the large foundation models are in hands of a few technology companies. But from a accessibility point of view, but the beauty of this is that now you have many people that can do Gen AI, that can incorporate it into their products, into their tools, into their value propositions. And why is this so important? Because before, when you had traditional AI, you had to know how to build machine learning models, deep learning models. You had to have this strong background in statistics, mathematics, computer science, database programming to be able to build these things. So humans were a roadblock, and it was an expensive, and still is an expensive profession. Now with Gen AI, a lot of this, you just need to know how to program. And most importantly, you need to understand the problem. So if I'm a marketing analyst or a manager in sales or a product leader, I can basically grab these tools and start incorporating them in the products I'm building. And IT people, developers, infrastructure, data people suddenly are available and can start really leveraging these. So we have a larger stakeholder base and production base that's going to really push for great ideas that are in the hands of people interacting with our customers or dealing with our operations.
We're generally super excited about the prospects that could be emerging in the region. We're investors in a company called Darwin AI that is leveraging AI applications for customer support, ticketing, and sales, and there's a few others emerging in that space. Then there's more mature use cases like Yalo, which is a large Mexican platform that is enabling CPG companies to connect with their end customers and with their small and pop shops. That one's doing phenomenally well. Are you excited about any particular themes or use cases that could be applicable for the region? And maybe, asking you now that you're, left Albertson and onto your next adventure, what use cases have you interested?
Yeah, no, I see several startups in Latin America, and I continue to be involved and advise and help connect here with the Valley as well. One of them that I really am excited about, it's called Perhaps. They're from Chile, and they're basically building, it's funny, like they're creating the fourth person, your fourth employee. So they're creating AI agents that can do the tasks that your company should be doing. So it's like your collaborator, like the person working on your team. So who would be your employee who you collaborate with? You can enable that person to do that agent to do that. And it's really, they're progressing really well. There's many others that are building really cool stuff. Another one is working in the space around optimal nutrition, and how do you help people around optimal coaching and nutrition, and that startup's doing amazingly. And so I think the other beauty about Gen AI is really allowing us to tackle problems that were hard to tackle in the past. And a lot of startups are finding that space. And I think one thing I'd said, if you're from Latin America and from anywhere, think about the world, think about the States. Don't think only about Latin America, because companies are going to be investing, VCs are going to be investing where there's a product that actually can solve a problem that hasn't been solved before or has been solved in an efficient way. So I think there's a time to value and a mover advantage. So I would say invest heavily. Other thing about Latin America, people are hungry. People are hungry from a point of view of ambition, of effort, and work hard. So I think there's great opportunity, amazing talent. And then I would say there's another one is called Artificio, which is trying to really create a platform that allows for, they pivoted, they were doing something else. And now the CEO Arturo it's found an opportunity within the driverless vehicle space. A lot of these driverless vehicle space have their own metrics, and you have to classify things. Is this a cone? Is this a person? Is this a bike? And basically, they're building a technology that allows companies to benchmark their metrics against other metrics, kind of like a Hugging Face of LLMs, but for computer vision. So I think Latin America has an amazing talent, and money goes a lot longer. So runways can be larger, especially longer if you have good talent and teams in Latin America. Yeah, so I think it's exciting.
Exciting times to come for sure. And putting myself in the shoes of a key decision maker at a corporation or at a corporate VC fund or venture capital fund, and looking to make investments in the space, what top 3 or 5 questions would you ask the founders from a business model and technical perspective to make sure that what is under that hood is actually good technology with great efficiencies and not just smoke and mirrors?
Yeah. So first of all, I'd for me, it's always the founders. Like, who are they? What drives them? Why is this problem a problem to them? And are they great human beings? I mean, not without flaws. We all have flaws, but like, second is like, how honest and transparent are you regarding the technology you're building? Like, there's so many companies out there that are AI companies, and that's fine. I think now actually it's any company can be an AI company. Before the GenAI revolution, everyone, or not everyone, a lot of startups were claiming they're AI companies, that then you looked under the hood and it wasn't really AI. It was like some more basic stuff, which is fine. You can create a lot of value with that. But I think that was a red flag in many ways. Were they stretching the truth? I think today also one has to be careful and be honest about, like, hey, what's your technology risk? What's the feature you're working on? How plausible is it that one of these big LLM companies are going to implement something like that? And I think the more one goes away from generalities and general features to specific pain points and use cases, and finding where those use cases and pain points are massive in industries, the higher defensibility startups will have. The other thing is just having an understanding of, like, what's the comparative data that they have or their clients should have that they really can leverage on and create a competitive advantage on.
Super clear. And are you aware of any tools that can help these key decision makers make better decisions for investment purposes?
Yeah, I'm forgetting the name, but a lot of VCs and investment companies are starting to use these tools. So Tribe Capital is a crypto Web3 VC here in the Valley that uses a ton of analytics to predict success. There's actually on the OpenAI store, there's several VC agents, GPT agents, that can look at your deck and give you feedback, that can actually look at the economics, unit economics, and provide an analysis on it. There was a famous one which we can post on LinkedIn and on the event page after, but they basically have created an agent that can help do the due diligence for VCs and startups, and it's pretty interesting.
That's fascinating. We're getting here to the end of the hour, so I want to make sure that we don't have any other audience questions. Maybe the last one to come. If not, I can provide one last one, and maybe we can end 2 or 3 minutes early here. So I'll just give it 10 seconds, and if not, I'll just shoot the last question.
I actually have a question for you, Daniel. At HTwenty, how are you guys thinking of this and evaluating companies? If I'm a startup founder and I'm listening and I want HTwenty to invest in me and us, and I'm a company that's leveraging AI, GenAI, how would I convince you guys to invest in me?
So that's the second time I get this question asked today. And how we see things, and it goes back to creating that mode or creating that competitive edge. We understand that as a VC that invests in cross-border opportunities between the US and in Latin America at a pre-seed and seed stage, companies in that stage for us would have to be more focused on the application layer than on the infrastructure layer. I do believe, and going back to the FII conference, that the large companies with access to compute and with access to distribution and with access to the billions of dollars in funding and to the top tier employees will create that infrastructure. I want to invest in founders that will leverage that infrastructure and that can build on top at a more cost effective manner. And particularly companies that have access to proprietary data, as you mentioned, in the region. Let's call them banks, or let's call them fintechs with B2C customers, or let's call them gig economy companies that have alternative data sets from their customers. I think we're going to see interesting use cases in that regard. We're mostly a B2B fund investing in software, fintech, and marketplaces. So now looking at companies that can leverage AI capabilities for more efficiencies in their unit economics in general. I want that AI capability to be seen at a P&L basis. They should become more profitable and capital efficient businesses over time. That's a more general use case. And then on the more specific use case, as mentioned, we're investors in companies like Darwin AI, which are more focused on the customer support side of things. And over time, they'll get into the decision augmentation side of things as a fourth employee, let's call it. And I think there's very interesting other use cases in product design and in engineering type of use cases. So to summarize, I would say on the application layer, building real businesses that could see real value and efficiencies from that technology on their P&L.
There you go. You guys have the secrets. Leverage it.
So if I were to be pitching you as an investor that knows more about AI than myself, what would you think? Do you agree with that?
I do, especially in the short to medium term. I think the application layer is the place to go. I think really understanding pain points in the industry that can now be solved differently and more efficiently is the huge opportunity. And I would say those are the obvious ones. I think the hard thing is, how do we create new industries? How do we create new categories? And that's one where I would say that's another big opportunity. Those are harder because it's harder to see the play. So think about Uber in the beginnings, even though the pain point was huge. But yeah, I would say or Amazon Web Services, so compute, cloud compute. But I think the productivity space is a big one. But they'll nail it on the head. They'll hit it on the head of the nail if they're able to really leverage the domain expertise and the customer pain points and centricity for understanding the experience.
That's a great one. That last company mentioned, there will be new category defining verticals or industries being created with AI. And sometimes they look silly or contrarian, right? If you would have looked at an Uber deck or an Airbnb deck or even a Facebook deck 15, 20 years ago, those ideas look silly and it's really hard to visualize them over time. So of course, part of our hat as an investor is to screen and look for the best talent and the best capabilities. So thanks again for joining. We have reached the hour. This was really exciting, and hopefully the audience got a few takeaways to learn. Hope to see you soon, Miguel, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to the audience. Have a great day.
Bye.